If you were the black sheep or the scapegoat of your family, you have spent your entire life feeling like you were the problem. You were the one who was too sensitive, too difficult, or the one who just couldn't go with the flow. But psychology says that in a dysfunctional family system, the person who is identified as the problem is actually, almost without exception, the healthiest person in the room. You weren't rejected because you were broken. You were rejected because you were a mirror that reflected the things your family didn't want to see. Family systems theory calls this being the identified patient, but evolutionary biology has a different name for you, the Evolutionary Scout. You are the one nature designed to break the pattern. And if you have spent years walking on eggshells wondering why you never fit in, you actually possess 10 rare psychological gifts that are the direct result of your survival. Before we dive into your gifts, we have to understand the environment that forged them. Being the black sheep isn't just about being different, it's about being the disruption. In psychology, we look at the family as a mobile, the hanging structure with balancing parts. In a toxic or rigid family, the goal isn't growth, the goal is homeostasis, keeping things exactly the same. When you came along with your questions, your sensitivity, and your need for truth, you threatened that balance. You became the scapegoat not because you were bad, but because the family needed a container to dump their unprocessed trauma into so they didn't have to look at it. You were the vessel for their shadow. And while this was incredibly painful, creating deep wounds of abandonment and loneliness, it also forced your brain to develop in a completely unique way. You didn't develop the neural pathways of compliance. You developed the neural pathways of a cycle breaker. Here are the 10 rare gifts you possess because you refused to fit in. The first gift is that you possess an intolerance for cognitive dissonance. In many families, there's an unwritten rule that says we pretend everything is fine. Mom is crying in the kitchen, dad is angry, but at the dinner table, we smile. This creates cognitive dissonance, a conflict between what you see and what you are told. Most children learn to suppress their reality to survive. They agree with the lie to stay safe. But you couldn't do it. You are what psychologists call a truth teller. Your brain has a physiological reaction to inauthenticity. When people are fake or when there's an elephant in the room, you feel it in your body. You might have been punished for talking back or starting drama, but in reality, you were just pointing out what was actually happening. This gift means that as an adult, you are immune to gaslighting. You can walk into a boardroom, a relationship, or a social gathering and instantly know who is authentic and who is wearing a mask. You are the canary in the coal mine. Now, seeing the truth is a superpower, but it doesn't explain why you felt the physical weight of your family's history. That comes down to this next trait. Gift number 2 is that you are an ancestral alchemist. Research in the field of epigenetics suggests that trauma can be passed down through gene expression for generations. The anxiety you feel, the heaviness in your chest, it might not have started with you, but the black sheep is the one who says, "This ends with me." You are likely the one in your family who went to therapy first. You were the one reading self-help books, the one mediating, the one trying to heal. You volunteered, consciously or unconsciously, to metabolize the pain that your ancestors ran from. You aren't just living your life. You are rewriting the genetic code for your lineage. You are turning the lead of generational trauma into the gold of wisdom. This leads directly to the third gift, which was often framed as your biggest weakness. You possess high sensory intelligence. You were probably told you were too sensitive or too emotional, but psychology links this to a trait called sensory processing sensitivity. Your nervous system literally takes in more data than the average person. In a chaotic home, this was overwhelming. You absorbed your mother's depression, your father's rage, your siblings' jealousy. You became an emotional sponge. But here is the gift. You can read micro-expressions. You can sense a shift in the emotional temperature of a room before anyone else speaks. This isn't a disorder, it is an evolutionary advantage in a tribe. The person with high sensory intelligence is the watchman. You are the one who senses the storm coming. Your sensitivity is actually a sophisticated data collection system that makes you an incredible leader, healer, and friend. But having a sensitive heart doesn't mean you are soft. In fact, it usually results in a spine of steel. Regarding this next trait, gift number 4 is justice sensitivity. If you were the black sheep, you likely have a visceral, physical reaction to injustice. You cannot stand to see the underdog bullied. You cannot stand unfairness. This comes from being on the receiving end of power imbalances. You know what it feels like to be voiceless. Research shows that people who experience early life adversity often develop a high capacity for altruistic punishment, meaning you are willing to risk your own safety to stand up for what is right. While others look away to stay comfortable, you step in. You are the whistleblower. You are the advocate. You possess a moral compass that points true north even when the rest of the world is spinning. Interestingly, this drive for justice creates a paradox. You often end up leading even when you don't want to. Gift number 5 is that you are a reluctant leader. In your family, you weren't trying to take charge, you were just trying to survive. But because you operated outside of the groupthink, you developed autonomy. Most people are terrified of standing alone. They will follow a bad leader just to belong to the herd. But you've already survived the wilderness. You've already been the outcast. This makes you incorruptible. You don't lead for power, you lead because you see a better way. You are what leadership experts call a transformational leader, someone who leads by example and authenticity rather than by force. You don't need the validation of the crowd because you learned how to validate yourself. Now, being a leader requires knowing who to trust, and your past has given you a specific radar for that. Gift number 6 is that you are a detector of hidden motives. When you were the scapegoat, you learned that words are often used as weapons or disguises. You learned that "I love you" can sometimes mean "I want to control you." Because of this, you developed a skill called pattern recognition regarding human behavior. You listen to the tone, not the text. You watch what people do, not what they say. You might find it hard to trust easily, and that's okay. It's not paranoia, it's discernment. You save yourself years of bad relationships because you can spot a narcissist or a manipulator within the first 5 minutes of meeting them. Your trust is hard to earn, but once given, it is rock solid. This discernment often leads you to spend time alone, and while society says loneliness is bad, you have turned it into a superpower. Gift number 7 is the capacity for solitude. The black sheep often spends a lot of time on the margins. You might have been excluded or you might have isolated yourself for safety, but in that silence, you found something the others didn't. You found yourself. While others need constant distraction and validation to feel okay, you have a rich inner world. You are comfortable in the void. Creativity, deep philosophy, and spiritual growth require solitude. You aren't lonely, you are self-contained. You have built a home within yourself that no one can kick you out of. This solitude led you to ask the big questions. Gift number 8 is that you possess the seeker's mindset. Why did you watch this video? Why are you reading the comments? Why are you always trying to understand psychology, spirituality, or the universe? Because the explanations your family gave you didn't add up. You knew there had to be more to life than the dysfunction you were seeing. Black sheep are almost always the ones who break out of the matrix of their upbringing. You explore new religions, new philosophies, new ways of healing. You are an explorer of consciousness. Your pain pushed you to expand your mind, whereas comfort would have kept you asleep. And because you questioned everything, you lost the ability to be fake. Gift number 9 is radical authenticity.
There is a freedom that comes when you stop trying to please people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Once you realize that nothing you do will make them happy, you are free to do what makes you happy. You have a low tolerance for small talk and shallow connections. You crave depth. You would rather have one real conversation than 50 fake ones. This makes you magnetic to other authentic people. You find your soul tribe because you are broadcasting a signal of truth that only other truth tellers can hear. Finally, the ultimate gift, the gift that ties it all together. Gift number 10 is that you are the wounded healer. Psychologist Carl Jung coined this term. It means that your power comes from your wound. Because you have navigated the darkness of rejection, loneliness, and confusion, you have the map to help others get out. You have deep compassion. When someone tells you they are hurting, you don't offer platitudes, you offer presence. You know what it's like to be at the bottom, so you know how to lift others up. Your existence is living proof that trauma doesn't have to be the end of the story. It can be the beginning of a legend. So here is the truth. They called you the black sheep because you didn't blend in with the flock. But sheep are herd animals. They follow blindly. You were never a sheep. You were a wolf or a lion or a dragon trying to squeeze into a sheep's costume to make everyone else feel comfortable. You